All right, Sadi, I'm going to get started with an introduction. So welcome, everyone. My name is Angel Gao Jr. I am the Education Liaison for the Bronx Borough President's Office, but I also oversees Bronx Fathers Taking Action, a fatherhood initiative out of the Borough President's Office, Vanessa L. Gibson. Now, I want to welcome you, everyone, to our virtual conversation series on the topic of mental health. Now, before anything, I want to introduce you our special guest speaker, Ms. Sadi Manuel, everyone. And I'm going to just give you a quick bio of our special guest. So Sadi Manuel is a licensed professional marriage and family therapist and director of the Bronx Prevention Program at Astor Services for children and families. Born in Cuba to a single mother and with a sister that suffered from mental illness, Sadi understands the many struggles of the immigrant family and has devoted her career to advocating and providing services to families recovering from trauma, dedicated to improving parent-child relationships. Sadi has trained in various models and techniques that help families improve their communication skills and strengthen their family bond. She has been an educator, a trauma-informed trainer, and is passionate about empowering parents to advocate for their family needs. Sadi holds a master's degree in human behavior or in organizational psychology and is a certified adoption counselor and mother of four. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Sadi Manuel from Astor Family Services. All right.
Thank you.
Sadi, thank you so much for giving out the time for participating in our virtual conversation series. We're really excited to get started with you.
No problem. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, of course, of course. So without further ado, we'll get started real quick. So as you know, many families and kids, when going back into in-person school full time, as well as parents that return back to their office full time, which brought back many changes to adjust, and kids and parents also feeling a little nervous. So I really wanted to bring up the topic of how can parents encourage kids who are anxious about going back to school? What would you say? What can we do for our kids to encourage them to actually go back to school?
Well, it's a difficult topic because parents themselves are really anxious too, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what's going to be changing, and during the pandemic, things have changed from day to day. And when the cases rise, then we don't know what's going to be happening next. We don't know how it's going to impact our lives, our children's lives, our jobs. So it feels like we're living day to day in a chaotic environment. And so how do you handle a chaotic environment, right? So it's almost like you need to create your own toolkit for doing that, but where do you begin?
Yeah.
So one of the first things that you really need to do as a parent is that it's important for you to be able to acknowledge your own anxiety, because the kids see it. They may not have words to really understand kind of what's going on with mom or dad. And you might not have words for yourself and what you're feeling too, but it's important for you to start to have some kind of acknowledgement that I'm feeling some type of worry, or I'm feeling some type of stress. I'm having a hard time sleeping. Even if you have the words for it, what's happening? What are some of the changes that you're feeling as a parent? Because if you're feeling it, the kids are seeing it, or they're seeing the results of it. And as the leader of that family, the kids are always going to follow the leader. So you have to be the example. So what do you want for your kids? Whatever it is that you want for your kids is what you have to do for yourself. And the most important way for you to be able to kind of spread that message for your kids is to be able to, number one, take care of yourself first. And then number two, have that conversation with your child. Let's start talking about what's going to happen when I go back to work and you go back to school. How am I feeling about it? How are you feeling about it? Start to have those conversations. Just because you're talking about it doesn't mean that it's going to make things worse. A lot of times as parents, we have those thoughts. Well, if I talk about it, it's just going to make things worse. In reality, kids are already having their own thoughts and feelings about it. And when you talk about it, it gives them a space to feel open, to really express themselves, and have an area to really share with someone who they know is going to listen. And if you give them that space, they'll be able to tell you things that maybe has just been kind of floating around in their own mind space. And it's a good way for you to be able to also find out, oh, they were thinking this was going to happen. Oh, that's not going to happen. Oh, they were thinking this is going to happen. Oh, I was kind of thinking that's going to happen too. So you get to bond with them and you get to be able to kind of check their thinking as well. And then it helps you kind of take on next steps, which is how do we attack this issue? What do we get to do next? How do we plan for this?
Mm. No, I love that. No, you're so right. So that basically adds into my next question, like motivation. I mean, I know myself, even during COVID, since me working for the borough president's office, we do a lot of community events and everything was on Zoom. And it just, to be honest with you, just got boring. It wasn't the same. And I'm sure as our kids, working from home, definitely lost motivation. I know I spoke to some students half the time, especially the high school students, they would log in whenever they wanted to during COVID. So what would be like the best recommendation that you could provide for the kids, but also the parents to provide them motivation to actually get back to their regular schedules as parents and as children as well?
Well, as you start to prepare those plans for going back to school, start talking about some of the stuff that's really exciting about going back to school. What did you miss the most about being back or about being in person? What's different about being at home? What are some of the comforts that you had while being in school? What was different about being in school versus being at home? You might um, be able to be in class while you're maybe on the sofa, but you got to sit down and talk with your friends while you're in school. Do you miss so and so? Do you miss having that, to talk to them in the hallway, or do you miss being able to sit down and have with them, or do you miss seeing your favorite teacher? Do you miss the after school activity? I think if you start with excitement, it really leads into better conversation because you're keeping things positive, and focusing on the positive really leads to more positive conversations. And that's a really great place to start because it changes their mindset from the negative and all the things they didn't like about school. Inevitably, there's always going to be that stuff. And it helps them to remain focused on the things they really did enjoy about school.
I
And
love
it's a really good place to start.
No, you're so right. I love that. I love that answer. I also wanted to bring up, a lot of, I mean, COVID's been probably slowing down, even though it's still out there. It's been slowing down. But a lot of parents, especially working for the education department for the borough president's office, a lot of parents have been complaining about them wanting their kids to go back to remote learning, not wanting to bring them in back to school because they're so nervous of COVID. But I just want you to express the advantages of actually the kids going back into schools, actually, conversating with kids, especially about the learning issues that they had during remote learning. And especially some kids even had depression, so I just want you to just speak about the advantages of actually, them going back to school and actually getting back to their normal schedules as kids.
So one of the biggest things that we learned during the pandemic that I think everybody, oh, not everybody, but a lot of people experienced across the board was technology issues, right? You and I, right before we got on this, I said, oh man, I hope I can
Yeah.
get this whole thing to work. Uh, a lot of us as parents, we, especially in my generation, we didn't grow up on technology. And most of these kids are more tech savvy than we are, but still with that, they still rely on a lot of help from their parents. And when technology failed us, the parents weren't really as savvy as they needed to be in order to be able to get things to work. And so that really kind of made it really difficult for the kids and the parents. It became a big point of frustration to be able to get them on every day. And they just didn't have the resources to be able to reach out to someone to say, I need help on this, and get the help that they needed in 5 minutes. Right. So that was a big kind of fallback on this whole pandemic thing. But another issue that happened too is that when you're in person, or let's go back, when you're online, you don't have all of your different learning styles catered to. And
Yes.
when you're in the classroom, you might have 5 different learning styles in that classroom that the teacher can work with. She might not be able to in that moment, but she has different things set up, or that teacher has different things set up in the classroom for the day to be able to deal with the different learning styles of the children that walk in through the classroom. And if not, there are learning plans that are put in place, right?
Mhm.
Uh, to be able to handle the weight of the different learning styles that need to be, that are challenged throughout the day, right? So there are kids who learn from their peers, from watching them do it. There are kids who learn from actually working on it on their own. There are kids who actually learn from listening. There are kids who learn better from watching it happen. And doing remote learning doesn't always really access all those different learning styles. And so it's a disadvantage to kids who learn different ways.
I love that you said that, because I know me growing up, or even throughout college, I had to be in the classroom. I wasn't the type of kid to do online. I hated it. I hated reading a book and then a teacher just gave me a piece of paper and expected me to just pass. I was always the one to ask questions, get involved, and that I was visual. I needed to be in the classroom and actually, be with my classmates and have a discussion about the whole session. So I'm so happy that you said that, because that's how I learn. And kids, especially nowadays, they learn so many different ways, which I love that you brought that up. Thank you so much for that. Now, so a big topic that I did a little survey before providing these questions, and a big discussion that brought up through parents was depression. They saw their kids just being very out of, just didn't even want to participate in the remote learning sessions. Like, what are some signs of depression to be aware of if your child or children are struggling during this time of COVID, during the pandemic?
Well, some of the signs for depression are similar to other signs for other mental illnesses. And so it's important to always take note, write it down. Some of the things that you're seeing, you start to noticing some changes. This is not normally how he or she behaves. Take note of what you're seeing, write them down, and then reach out to your pediatrician, or consult, or reach out to our mental health facility for maybe a consult, because sometimes a child can be misdiagnosed. But oftentimes with depression, you will see social isolation. They will not want to be around their peers or around other people. Sleeping patterns change, eating patterns change, a loss of appetite sometimes. Um, Maybe they're kind of frustrated with things. They lose joy of the things that they usually like doing before. That's often a big indicator. Things that they found fun, they're just like, they just don't find fun anymore.
Yeah.
Uh, so when you're seeing things like that mood change or behavior change, you need to kind of take note of those things, write those things down, and reach out to someone, reach out to a professional, reach out to the pediatrician, reach out to an agency for mental health, and say, I'm not sure what's happening, but I think my child might be going through depression or going through something. Can I have them evaluate, or can I come in for an intake so someone can come in and see them? And that we can get a clear diagnosis of what may be going on.
So I wanted you to, so that my next question was going to be, what does Astor's family actually provide for the students that are actually struggling with depression or any mental illness? If I was a parent, struggling with my child, how can Astor family actually provide me with the services that you guys provide? What should I do? How do I seek for help?
Well, it's a great leading question, right? At Astor Services, we actually have several programs that we provide for families in need. So for myself, I work with a prevention program. But for those families who are struggling with mental illness, we have the outpatient clinic. We have actually several locations out in the Bronx. And you can reach out to Astor Services and again, ask to speak with someone, and say, I'm seeing some of these symptoms or some of these things with my child. I'd like to be able to set up a schedule to do an appointment for an intake. And at that intake, they'll ask that child, the therapist will sit with that child and with the parent, and they will ask people questions, and you'll be able to talk with them and let them know what you're seeing. That child will also be able to provide some information as well. And that way you can also participate in what's happening with your child. and also have an opportunity to be able to work with the therapist, because they are able to work with the parents and the child. So this don't necessarily always have to just be with the child. Um, in my program for prevention, prevention is a little bit more specifically geared toward when a parent might be having a child who is suffering from educational neglect. They're not going to school. There might be other issues underlying the reason why they're not attending school. There might be a traumatic past. There might be other things that are happening that maybe there was some academic issues. They were really struggling during the pandemic last year. They were falling so far behind. They just don't want to go to school in person anymore because they feel like they're going to be made fun of at school because they're so far behind, or they don't want to face the fact that they're so far behind. There's so many things that happen in a child's mind when they're thinking about feeling like they're falling behind. And so it can really impact them psychologically. And a lot of times that's not seen. And what's only seen is that, oh, they're not attending school. And so this can turn into a child protective service case. And oftentimes we have an opportunity, if a parent reaches out to us, instead, we have an opportunity to intervene, working with that parent and that child before the school has
Love
a
it.
chance to call ACS and have that turn into a case. And so that's why we call it preventive, because we actually get to prevent that from happening. And so we go in there, we work with the parent, we work with the child. We don't provide the mental health services per se, but we can link you up with Astor services for the mental health piece. And we work with the parent and the child in order to increase those parenting skills. And we also do a lot of exploration about family history and work, and find out what else might be going on with the family, so that we can explore other options within the community. Our point is to make sure that the family has as many resources as possible to help themselves, so that other services that they don't necessarily want in their lives don't come into their lives, and they can kind of take care of their own family needs.
Awesome. Awesome. And Sadi, I also wanted to bring up, because I know there's a lot of parents out there watching right now that, especially in the community of color, it's like stigmatized to even talk about mental health, of what they're all going through. How can we encourage more families to actually, provide them with the services that they really need, but they may want to just keep it with just in the family? That's like very old school, right? Like, no, we don't need a therapist. We don't need to talk to anyone. We could handle this right here at the dinner table, which is sometimes wrong. People actually need the therapy, need the help that they, because sometimes they, let's be honest, us as parents, we go through a lot, as kids as well. So like, how can we encourage our community of color, especially in the Bronx, to go out and discuss these issues that they're having, and or to contact Astor Family with the services that you guys provide? How do we do that? How can we do that? What would you recommend?
Well, it's a generational thing.
Yeah.
It is a cultural belief, right? And in many families, it is a family belief that you just don't talk about your problems outside of the family. And I think this pandemic has taught us that when you're completely isolated and you're not allowed to go out, it makes it just that much harder and that much more difficult to deal with things on your own. And so I'm just encouraging everyone that you can use this opportunity to reach out to the resources that you have within your own community. This pandemic has taught us that even though in those moments of isolation, there are still community providers out there that have tirelessly worked with the community through the pandemic to make sure that people have resources available to them. We continue to provide services in the community through telehealth. So nobody had to come into the office, but we continue to reach out to the community via phone, via video, so that you're receiving these services in your home, and we were still able to work with you. It's important to know that when you're struggling with mental health, when your children are struggling with mental health, and things feel like they're too much and there's so much of a burden for you, that you're not alone. There are so many families that are going through the exact same thing. And then each family individually has their own individual trauma, their own individual story. And when you're in therapy, those stories are valued. So your story is important. Your trauma is important. You as an individual are valued. You as a parent are valued, and your children are valued. And so when you come in to meet with us, we take care, we validate those concerns that you have as a parent. We sit and we listen, and we work with you to create a plan for success for you and for your family based on what you're looking to be able to create for your family at that point. So we're not looking to be able to create something for you. We say, what is it you want? And we listen to that. And you say, I want to work on this right now. This is what I feel is really important right now for my family. Okay, let's create a plan based on that. And then we explore other things that might be happening, because nothing is a standalone point, right? There are always
Exactly.
things that are connected. There are always systems that are connected. One thing is connected to another in our family life story, right? So something might be happening to you as a parent right now that might be connected to your own childhood story when you were growing up. And when we get to explore that, and we get to create a plan around that, that might indeed actually help you to be able to connect better with your child. And so in exploring that, that creates a success story for you as a parent and your child. But those plans are always created with you and your child in mind. And you're always in the driver's seat. And so because we value that, I think it's important for you to always consider having someone who's going to listen to you, not judge you, remain unbiased, but take your needs into consideration. And I think that's what mental health services is all about. It's not about the judgment. It's more about how do we continue to provide you with the help that you're needing at this time. And sometimes people come to you looking for something, but not completely ready. And if we can provide you a good experience at that moment and you say, you know what, but I'm not ready right now to make this change, that's fine. If we are able to provide you a good experience at that moment and you're ready 6 months down the road, at that moment in time, you will come back and then you'll be ready to fully engage and make the changes that you want to make at that point in time. And that's completely okay too.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. I love that. You know, so us, I wanted to also bring up, since we are Bronx Fathers Taking Action, right? 'Cause we have a lot of single fathers in the Bronx, but we also have a lot of single mothers in the Bronx, especially dealing with this whole pandemic. Um, does Astor actually provide any services for single moms and single fathers that may need the help during this whole pandemic?
We have a variety of different types of programs, and I think it would depend on what exactly it is that you would need. So again, I do the prevention programs. We also have the outpatient program. We have other type of mental health programs that also work in home. What it is that you felt that your need was at the time. And so I would encourage you to reach out and say out what's going on with me right now. And that person at the front desk would then transfer you over to the correct department, to say, you know, be my intake. So so you don't have to kind of retell your story over and over again, but we kind of refer you to the correct department. But I also encourage you to look through our Astor website. A lot of information out there as well. We have information on our different programs. So look through it and see what it is that might kind of fit what you might be going through at the time. We have actually, we're going to be kicking off a parenting class sometime around April, end of April, beginning of May as well. That's going to be free to the community, 6 weeks long. So if anybody feels that that might be maybe a requirement for another program that they need to fulfill, or just something that they feel might be helpful for them in trying to kind of increase some of their skills, we provide that. We provide some things for the community and other things that are tied to kind of Medicaid, so no cost out of pocket. So I would encourage everybody. I think Janine put up the Astor website
She did.
on the chat, so I encourage everybody to click on it and browse right through it. Reach out to us if you have any questions, and somebody will pick up the phone and be happy to help you.
Also, if we will be taking a Q&A in about 2 minutes, everyone. So if anyone has questions, please feel free to put them in the question box or as well as in the comment section for us. I'll be more than happy to read your question. I also wanted to bring up, you know, self-care for these parents. I just wanted to express how important is self-care for single parents, for parents that are together, whatever. How important is self-care, especially during the pandemic and all the mental health issues that we've been going through?
This is my favorite question. And I'll tell you, parents fall short of this the most.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is because oftentimes parents confuse self-care with being selfish. And that's the biggest mistake that we can make. We feel that as single parents, if we take 10 minutes to ourselves and all we want is just to have 10 minutes to ourselves when so-and-so needs for you to fix their toy or help them with their homework or get an extra snack, that we're being selfish. And it's not being selfish. If you're not able to take care of yourselves, then those people who depend on you will have not the best version of you for sure, but really will see the unhealthiest part of you. And remember what I had said earlier was that you're the leader. Those kids are always going to be looking up at you as their role model. And when you're saying, I don't love myself enough to take care of myself, then you're modeling for them that they shouldn't love themselves enough to take care of themselves. And if that's not the message that you want for them, then you shouldn't be showing that message. Yes, you can take a time out and you can write it into your day. And if you come home from work and you say, you know what, today was a doggone day and I am exhausted, and your son comes up to you and says, but I have homework and it's due and I need 10 minutes. I'm going to go into my room and I need 10 minutes. Do not knock on my door. It's not being selfish. You're doing self-care. You're loving yourself, and they will see that and they will appreciate you for it, because when you come out of that room after 10 minutes, you're going to be a better person, and they will love that better person. And you will love yourself for having taken care of yourself for 10 minutes, and you will love the person that you're presenting to that child. And that's going to be so important. We need to take care of ourselves, not just because, as the saying goes, we deserve it, but because at the end of the day, we are modeling that behavior for them. When they become adults, it's part of their coping skills. You know what? I've had a rough day. Instead of yelling at the next person who comes at me with another problem looking for me to solve it, I'm going to take a time out because I need to collect myself, deal with whatever's coming down the pike. And it's okay. It's okay to do that. It's okay to write in a bubble bath. It's okay to, whoever does bubble bath. I don't do them, but I know plenty of people who do. It's okay to write in half an hour a book. It's okay to write in, this is my TV show time. I'm watching whatever show it is. And this is my day, and this is my time. This is my TV time. As it's okay to write that in, just like you write in all the kids' activities and all their homework time and everything else that you write in your schedule. When you're taking care of everybody else, it's okay to take care of you. Write it in, and everybody knows that that's your time and that's sacred time. So you're taking care of yourself, and that's a reflection of how.
Come on. It's freezing on me. Give me a second. No, that was great. Oh man, I'm getting a lot of hearts in the comments from what you just said, Sadi. I feel like the parents needed to hear that today, especially, because sometimes they do need their me time. Sadi's phone just overheated, but before we end, I just want to say thank you everyone for coming out today. If you guys please are looking to If you guys please are looking for more information on any mental health issues for your children, your parents, the kids, please follow at Astor Services on their tag for Instagram.